So the next one is International Monetary Fund. This is a little bit important. There are 2 points to idea in IMF, which is important for you to understand. Okay. So as I told you in the beginning of the introduction, I told you that IMF main objective is to ensure stability in international monetary system or stability of financial system. Okay, so liquidity in the world needs to be stable to ensure that the economy of the world also remains stable. Trade also remains stable. Exchange rate remains stable. Balance of payment remains stable for all the countries. So IMF tries to do this to ensure stability in international financial system or monetary system. How does it do it? So once we finish this topic, you'll understand and then you can again appreciate this. So surveillance, okay, to determine whether there is any kind of instability that can occur. Like for example, COVID happened, because of which economic instability can happen in the future. So actions should be taken. What kind of action should be taken? Now there is Russia-Ukraine crisis, which can also lead to economic problems, right? So all that has to be accommodated, and IMF will give advice to member countries. So keeping track of the global economy and economy of the member country, that is surveillance role. So it collects data, it predicts the economy of the future, and it comes up with a prediction of the future. All these are done by them. Then it also provides lending role to those countries who are having balance of payment instability or balance of payment crisis. Because as I told you, economy of one country is going to affect the economy of the other country. So we need to ensure stability of that country also. So the lending to those countries who face what? Balance of payment difficulty, that is lending role, and giving practical help to members, technical assistance, etc., to manage their financial system better. So it was established in 1944. Currently, you have 190 members. Its headquarters is in Washington, DC. Publication, it publishes several reports like World Economic Outlook, Global Financial Stability Report. So it will conduct survey and it will publish these reports. So what is the future growth? What are the challenges that the global economy faces? All these things can be understood. Okay, so the next one is the objective. Okay, very quickly, again, since it's we have already discussed the function, the objective is what? Promote monetary cooperation among all the member countries, facilitate expansion and balanced growth of international trade. This you should be able to appreciate. How does IMF facilitate trade? Okay, see, one way is because it has established a multilateral system of payment, which is called as SDR, Special Drawing Rights, which I will explain to you now. So this SDR has facilitated trade, or it was established initially in order to facilitate trade. So take this example or take this story again. So when we say, in global trade, let's say India wants to sell something to a European country. Okay, when we sell our spices to Europe, they are going to pay us some money. They're going to pay us some money. What is the guarantee for us that that money is going to be useful? So international trade in the olden times used to take place in gold. Okay, a country might have its own currency, but internationally when trade had to take place, it had to take place in gold. Because when India sells spices to Europe and Europe pays in their currency, back then, I'm not talking about now, back then when they paid in European currency, why would we accept it? What's the use for us? If we get gold, gold had an international standing. It was considered as the global asset. Gold was considered as a de facto global asset. Globally, it was accepted. Agreed. Okay, then later on, de facto, what happened? Which currency took over? Dollars. Alwa. So gold and dollars became a de facto international asset. Do you agree with that? So tomorrow, when we do trade with Sri Lanka, if they give us dollars, we are happy. We don't have to worry. Or if they give us gold, we don't have to worry because we can use it anywhere. Imagine if they give Sri Lankan currency to us. Is there any use for it? Other than we can import something from Sri Lanka. When we have that deficit, what's the use? Let's say we are exporting $50 billion worth goods to Sri Lanka, and we are importing only $30 billion worth of goods from Sri Lanka. So there is a deficit, let's say, of $20 billion. What's the use if we are doing trade in Sri Lanka? That $20 billion worth of Sri Lankan currency would be wasted. So now again coming back to how IMF is playing an important role in trade by facilitating this, by establishing this multilateral system of payment system called as SDR, which is facilitating trade. So because as trade increased, as trade expanded, billions of dollars of trade was taking place on a daily basis. That much gold world did not have. Okay, so we had to create something else which had the power of gold. Dollar, by default, it started to play a role. But dollar again is controlled by whom? By one country. What about other countries? So they can change the trade pattern by controlling their currency. Only they could print currency of theirs, but we could not. So to facilitate that, as the economy of the world increased, trade increased, we had to find an alternative to gold. That is where IMF created this special drawing rights, an international currency. It's not a currency. I'm just trying to give you a picture that like an international currency. So now it acts as a global asset, which member countries can use for various purposes. So by this, it has facilitated trade. And also by facilitating exchange rate stability, it facilitates trade. So how? One, by creating an international asset, and second, by ensuring stability in exchange rate. Now again, recollect what we did when we started external sector. I told you, fixed exchange regime. Who came up with this fixed exchange regime? IMF. Remember, in 1970, the system collapsed. But it was introduced by IMF for what reason? Where country's exchange rate was fixed to another country's exchange, and this led to what? Stability. Fixed exchange rate, what is the advantage? It facilitates stability between two countries. Alva, because we have floating exchange regime, aren't we facing problem because rupee value has depreciated? Aren't we facing problem? Our imports are becoming expensive, costlier. Okay, this would not happen if our exchange rate was fixed. Alva, that was the idea then. In 1950s, the idea why IMF came up with this fixed exchange regime was to ensure stability. Too much fluctuation because of floating exchange rate can lead to economic problems. It can affect trade. India ke liye trade has got affected. No, imports have become expensive. Okay, oil, we have no other choice. We have to import some other commodities. If another country wants to import to India, now they are not able to. Why? Because it's become expensive. You understood? So is it good for trade? Floating exchange rate? It may not always be good for trade because too much of fluctuation. So now let's try to understand this again. So facilitate expansion and balanced growth of international trade. Did you understand that? One, by ensuring stability in the economy. Okay, thereby facilitating trade. By also creating this multilateral system of payments, we have replaced gold and dollars. Okay, or an attempt to replace it. Okay, attempt to replace so as to facilitate trade. Tomorrow, trade doubles or triples or becomes 10 times more. SDR can be also increased 10 times more to facilitate trade. You'll understand that later when we do SDR. Keep that point in mind. Promote exchange rate stability by coming up with what is known as fixed exchange rate. Then assist in establishment of multilateral system of payment, and also make resources available to members who are experiencing balance of payment difficulty. Is that understood, all of you? Please go through it again. If you have any doubt, please ask me.